Hello everyone, welcome to our last recitation. And we, as the semester is coming to an end, we are not going to be doing anything new in this final recitation, just some review over the things that we have done, a small brief review. And I would think the latest portion we have covered, I think you would be fairly familiar with it or you haven't forgotten it yet. So I'll be covering like HTML and JavaScript basically in this. But before we start, a few things about the finals, I'll just like to remind you. So the finals that is next week is gonna be three parts, and part one and part two are based on your exam one and exam two, and it follows the second chance policy. So I'll just like to remind you that, and that is like if you didn't perform well on exam one or exam two, if you do better than that on part one and part two of the finals, your score for the previous exam would be replaced. But it doesn't work both ways. That is, like if you performed very well on exam one, but you don't perform well in the finals, that final score will stay. So don't think like you have done well, so that score will replace this one. It doesn't work both ways. If you so you have to do well in the finals. That's the main agenda. And like if you have done poorly in the past or like didn't think it was enough, you could improve that performance. So that is a chance for you to do that. Again, after giving the two exams, you must have been familiar with the pattern, like how the questions are. It should be the same. So I think the while grading your exams, the most thing I see is like the time management is takes away most of the students takes away a lot of points from you because you don't have much time to attempt the last question, which is usually carries more points, and you don't have enough time because it's a big question like writing an HTML page or writing a JavaScript code. So you can expect something similar, but again the pattern would be same. There would be a lot of multiple choice questions, some textual or open-ended questions, and some coding questions, or basically creating something in HTML, those sort of things. My suggestion would be don't leave any open-ended, or even if it's like a big question like coding question, don't leave it blank. Attempt something, even if it's wrong, just give your attempt, cause everything will count towards some points. Okay, so that's all from my side. Just wanted to clarify about the extra credit, T extra credit. I'll be giving them based on your attendance or the Google Forms that we have. So you don't have to worry much about those points. And keeping all that in mind, let's get started on today's recitation. So I'd like to start with HTML. So just want to remind you what HTML elements are. So if you forgot to add a link or anything, we have the anchor tag, where in the href you add the URL that is required. For images, it's very similar, but it's an img tag. And the main thing to notice is img, all the tags don't need an ending tag. If you forgot, like img tag don't doesn't need to be closed. And in there you can have a lot of attributes like height, width, alt. So these are some of the elements. Then we had lists, the two types of lists, unordered and ordered, and li were the list elements. And you can have a lot of tags working in conjunction, like we have here. Inside a list element, we have a link here to the first.html page. Instead of that, you could also have some things like list inside a list. So in that case, you will have another list tag, like a UL and a O or an OL tag inside a list element. So that's how you create sub points or sub lists or sub bullet points. Just have another UL tag inside it and have its list element. So that will be like the sub list inside the list. Going ahead, table is very important, and we had a lot of questions about tables in your exam. So just going over, so border is through table border. The table has a caption. Many people use paragraph for the caption which was not correct and got some points off, not many, but very few points off. But yeah, so to give the caption, we use the caption tag, not any paragraph or H1 or H2 tags. Then we have table rows, which give all the rows, and uh, TH is the headings, so heading columns. And then we have table data where we fill the table data. And this is all about the table. Again, many tags can be used inside this as a conjunction, like maybe in one of the cells, you might have a list, or maybe a link going to some other, or maybe an image. These are some of the things that have been asked to you in the previous exams. So keep that in mind, like what all things you can do, because sometimes the question asks you, like in a table there would be an image or an image going to a link. So you need to know where to add the tags exactly. You, if it's inside one cell, you cannot add the image tag here after caption or inside tr. It needs to be exactly inside that cell, so inside the table data cell, whichever it is based on the table. Okay. Now, coming to JavaScript, a few concepts. So, we learned a few ways for JavaScript. If I recall correctly, we can use JavaScript inside a script tag. We can use JavaScript inside buttons, which was the second way we did. So, the interaction between JavaScript and HTML was seen. So, firstly, we learned it through prompts. We have prompts which ask for something, and then we get that prompt value inside JavaScript, like we are doing here. So tags is prompt, enter a tags decimal. So it will give you a pop-up, and that will have, 1 second. Okay. So that will ask for the enter tax percentage, and you will get that here. Again, if it's numbers, you can add a number function outside it so that it's converted into a number. Make sure you define all the variables, because that's the most common mistake I've seen. Uh, some in many of the assignments, people forgot to declare variables, and that's why their whole big code was not working. So make sure you don't forget such small things. Then we had if else statements. So these were, I'm not covering flowcharts, but do go through them once. There could be something asked about them as well. And then we could update our variables, and based on the if else statement, and alert the user using, give the output using the alert function. So this was one way. Second way was we had text boxes, and text boxes like this. But yeah, on this part, I think this is good to go. Yes. So instead of using script tag, a more interactive way was creating a form kind of thing, and having headings, and then having text boxes where you give in the value, or you use text boxes for both, taking it as an input or an output. We had, so the main thing about text boxes was their IDs, because that's how you control their functionality. That is, you use the id dot value to either get the value from the text box or to set the value of the text box. For both the cases, you need the id of the text box. For buttons, we had two types of buttons, a normal button and a radio button. And radio buttons, make sure the names are same and the IDs are different. So these were the two things to remember, and where there was a lot of confusion. But yeah, radio button, you can select either of those. It gives you two options. A button is a normal button, and the logic for the button we used to write inside the on click. So all our JavaScript code goes inside these two codes. That is, like, if you want something to happen after the button, when you click the button, you go to the button and click on it, and if you want to set some value or calculate something, all that logic you will write inside this. And you might say you can use a text box dot id dot value to set the final value to some text box. So on click of a button is very important because based on that, we do our actions or whatever logic we want to do when the button is clicked on your HTML page. Now, one of the more challenging things that people found in this course, functions and loops. So function again is like a small JavaScript program itself. So it's like a mini version of a program inside a big program. And it helps you compartmentalize things or break down a big problem into small problems and help you with that. It also has a good thing that it is reusable. So you can have a function to do certain tasks and you can pass many things and you don't have to write the code for all of them every time. You just need to call the function. So two things are important, like defining the function and then calling the function. Many people tend to forget calling the function and it's never used. One example would be like a print array function, which we used quite often, like printing a whole array. So you pass the array into it. So that is passed as a parameter to a function. And then it's you print the array, like write a for loop to print the array, like this for statement, and then you give out the result. So we use that many times, and you can pass multiple arrays and print out their values. So that's a useful function that we use, and it returns an output. Coming to loops, loops was nothing but basically counting for computers in a sense. If you want something to be repeated or you want computer to count to something, and while counting you do some task. So for example, if you want to print what will this function print? So take a second and think like what will this for loop do? So if you see, it's starting from variable I is equal to 0. So the counting starts from 0 and it's going till 10. So and it's going till it will be equal to 10 and it does I plus plus. So print, and we are every time we are counting, we are printing the value of I. So this will print all the values from 0 to 10. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and it includes 10 because we have an equal to here. Again, a question for you, just think about like what if we had to write it in reverse? So what if we want to print 10, 8, 4, 2, 0? What will we do then? So that's a task I leave for you. I think you have done something very similar before. So just try thinking about it. Shouldn't be that hard. Lastly, we have arrays, JavaScript arrays. Arrays are something that we use to store values. So instead of like when we have to store a lot of values, then we take the help of arrays. And how arrays works is they have an address. So you first declare an array like a variable name. You give a name to an array and then you say what is its size. So in this case, the array is of size 10, of length 10. And if an array is of length 10, it will have some addresses. So the addresses will be from 0 to whatever the length is minus 1. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And inside these blocks of arrays, we store the element. And whenever you want to do something with that particular address, we use the address to get the element from there or to put in a new element or to do any operation. So let's say if its name was ARR, so to store an element at index 8, we'll do ARR of 8 is equal to anything like 5. So 5 will be stored here. So we use the name and the address together to get that particular value or fetch that particular value from the array or put something back into an array. So these were some concepts we had. A small problem. So let's say you have to print this value. So this is basically the nesting of loops, which is a challenging topics that students find. So two examples just on that. So take a moment and try to print this pattern. You can use js.do to do this. Yep. So you can go to js.do and create a new script tag and try and print that pattern of stars here, which is here. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 stars in one row, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 rows. So pause the video, try it out. Okay, so if you have tried it once, let me just show you. So there could be multiple ways to do that. I'm just going to show you one. Maybe you have printed it using some other ways. That's fine. So let's start. So for I is equal to 0. So let's see how many rows are there first. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rows. I is less than 5. We again see we don't want it to be equal to 5 because the counting will start from 0. So we only want 5 rows. So we'll be do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And I plus I plus plus. Now inside every row, how many stars do we have? For each row, we have 4 stars. So we'll use another loop inside to count the number of stars. So see, you can do something like print, and that's perfectly fine. You can do add 4 stars like this and then give a break. Like I think this should work. Okay, there's something weird happening here. Yeah, that was I think js.do is not working for me. This works. Oh, okay. I think I cannot use print here. Yeah, my bad. I'll just write that down again. I is equal to 0, I is less than 5, I plus plus. Now you can just do document dot write start, start, start. So we get this pattern like this, but let's say if you had like more stars, you could this would be trouble. So if this was a solution you come up with, that's perfectly fine. It gets the job done. Okay. So to emphasize my point, so you didn't need nesting in this exactly, right? But let's say you had something like this. You had to for 0th row, you'll have one hash printed, then you have 2 hashes, 3 hashes, 4 hashes, 5 hashes, 6 hashes, 7 hashes. So pause the video and try printing this pattern and see if you can print it using one loop. Is it possible? Okay. So yeah, if you think you if you printed it using one loop, please send me the answer. But yeah, it's not easy to print it only using one loop. We'll need to use 2 loops for this, or nested loops. So now what do we do is, so firstly we need hashes. So I'll just remove this and put an hash. Again, let's count the rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 rows. So we want our counting of rows to go from 0 to 7 or 0 to 6 in this case. And then inside for every row, how many hashes do we want? That we'll do using this. So variable I is equal to 0. Oh, variable j is equal to 0. J. So for first row, what we want is we need only 1 star, then we need 2 stars, then we need 3 stars. So when the value of the first row is 0, we want 1 star. So when I is equal to 0, we want j to run 1 time. When I is equal to 2, I is equal to 1, we want it to run 2 times. So that's what we want. So we'll do j is less than I 1 0 1. Okay, and j plus plus, and then we'll print a hash. So let's try this. And after we are done with the row, we want to give a break. So don't forget to add a break here. So see, we got our desired pattern. And just like for nesting of loop, just visualize it as counting. If you have patterns to print, like treat the first loop as the rows and second loop as the columns, and it will help you visualize it better. Okay. So these are the few examples that I have. If you have any doubts, please let me know. And there's no attendance form for this week. Okay, because it was just a revision. Maybe many of you don't need that. And again, thank you for everything. I hope you learned something through the help of these recitations, and now you have a better idea of things or of some computer science concepts, or much better idea than you had before taking this course. So thank you and all the best for your finals. If you want to connect, my LinkedIn link is present in the final slides. And all the best for your future and for your exam. Bye bye.